Hi everyone, today we will be solving some medium level problems on dynamic programming. First, we will have a quick recap of what we have discussed in the previous classes. Then we will see just the basics of combinatorics which are required for solving some of the problems. It will just take about 4 to 5 minutes in that, and then we will start solving the problems. I want to tell you that this is not a live video. This is just a premiere of a recorded video. Still, if you have any doubt, you can feel free to ask in the live chat. I will try my best to solve it in the live chat itself. But if you have any doubt after the class also, we have kept a small session whose link will be present in the video description, as well as the timing of that session is present in the video description. In that session, we will also discuss how you can utilize the remaining part of your first year very effectively. And after the end of that session, in the same Google Meet, we will also discuss the doubts which you have. So try to attend it. The recording will not be provided on YouTube or any other platform. So let's start now. First, let's have a quick recap of what we have discussed previously. So you know that dynamic programming is a technique that is used to solve these three kinds of the problems. One is based on combinations and probability, like someone says you find the number of ways to do this thing. Or let us say ki you need to find the probability of doing this thing, etc. Or it may be an optimization problem. We solved many optimization problems in the previous class. You need to minimize something, you need to maximize something similar to that. Or the third type is yes no problems, which we have not solved till now. So we will be solving one of such problems in this class. So we will be solving one of such problems in this session. Now, you know that for dynamic programming, we always need two things. One is a recursive relation, which always must have a base case. Without base case, there is no recursion, and hence why we can apply dynamic programming. Means dynamic programming requires a recursive relation, and in that recursive relation, there should be a base case. And the second thing is there should be overlapping subproblems. It just simply means that your problem is basically divided into smaller subproblems, and out of those smaller subproblems, many problems are common, which we call overlapping subproblems. So I hope this is enough for revision. Now let us have a look at some basics of combinatorics. So just we need two rules here. One is the product rule and one is the sum rule, which you should know to solve the further problems. So the first product rule says that if you want to do two jobs, let us say job A and job B, such that the job A can be done in m ways and the second job B, can be done in n ways. Now someone asks you, okay, tell me the total number of ways to do both A and B. And A and B are independent, like you can do both of them together. So in that case, the total number of ways to do both A and B would be m into n. Just remember this formula. Whenever you need to do two jobs which can be done together and which are, or you can say which are independent jobs, so the number of ways to do both of them will be the number of ways to do first job multiplied by the number of ways to do second job. Let us see an example. So suppose you need to create a ICPC team which requires one mathematician, one programmer and one gamer. Now there are total 10 mathematicians, 15 programmers and 5 gamers in your college. So how many ways you can form a team? So simply you can say 10 ways to select a mathematician, 15 ways to select a programmer out of these, and 5 ways to select a gamer. You need only one mathematician, one programmer and one gamer. So the total number of ways to form the team, because you need all of them, so you multiply them. 10 multiplied by 15 multiplied by 5. Now let us say we change the question in somewhat other way. Let us say you are given two jobs again, and again job A can be done in m ways, job B can be done in n ways. Now you need to find the total number of ways to do either A or B. You cannot do both of them. You need to do only one of them. So now tell me the total number of ways. So it is simply m plus n. Let us see the example now. So now you need to form a ICPC team of either one mathematician or one programmer or one gamer. Now you need to find how many ways you can form the team. The total number of mathematicians, programmers and gamers are given. So now again you can say that 10 ways to select a mathematician, 15 ways are there to select a programmer and 5 ways to select any one gamer. Now you cannot select all of them. You need to select either a mathematician or a programmer or a gamer, anyone. So here you will do addition of these number of ways to get the total number of ways to form a team. So your answer would be 10 plus 15 plus 5. Here you are not multiplying these and instead you are adding them. I hope this basic concept is clear, because now whatever problems we will be solving, most of them would be based on combinatorics, and if you are clear with these rules, then only you will be able to understand them. You can always view the link of this Google Doc in the description of the video. Before starting solving problems, I would like to tell you that now it will work in such a way that I will give you a problem and the link is already present in the video description, so you can have a look from there also, and I will explain the problem. After explaining the problem, I will be telling you to pause the video and try it by your own, try to think of a solution, and once you try thinking and still you are not getting after a long time, then you can again play the video and see one of the hints which I will be telling, and now again pause the video and think of the solution now again. And again, if you are not able to think, then again you can play the video and watch the whole solution. And after I explain the solution, you should try to code it by yourself. And if you are not able to implement it, then I will be explaining you how to implement it. Means I will be telling you the whole code. So let's start with this problem, array description. In this problem, you are given an array of n integers which are lying between 1 and m. Now it says that the difference between two adjacent elements is at most 1. At most 1 means that it can either be 0 or 1, but not more than that. Now, given a description of the array where some of the values may be unknown, and it says that unknown is indicated by the value 0. If the value is 0, it means it is unknown. Your task is to count the number of such possible arrays which will match the description. So you need to find the number of ways to fill up the array. You can also say it that way, such that it matches the given description. What is the description? The description is just simply that the difference between two adjacent values cannot be more than 1. And you just need to print the number of ways or the number of such possible arrays modulo 10 to the power 9 plus 7. The constraints are given as this, and the example is given as this, like you have suppose 3 elements here and the value of m is 5. So each element can be from 1 to 5, and the difference between two consecutive or adjacent elements cannot be more than 1. So this element is 0 means it is unknown. You don't know this element. So you can fill it with any number from 1 to m only. So let us say I can fill it with 1. So it satisfies the description. I can fill it with 2. Then also it satisfies the given description. I can fill it with 3 also. So there are 3 possible arrays. You can see these are the 3 possible arrays that match the description. So now pause the video and try to think of a solution by your own. And then I will be telling you the hint if you are stuck for long. Now I am going to give you a small hint. Consider this test case where m is given as 7 and there are many elements given in the array, and some of which are zeros indicating that they are not present or not known. So you can fill them with any value such that they satisfy the given constraint or the given condition. Now just try to move from left to right and fill up the values which are unknown with any value such that they satisfy a given condition. Let us say like this value can be what? It can be either 3, it can be either 4, or it can be either 5, because it says that adjacent element difference cannot be more than 1. So this can be 4 or 5, or it can even be 3. So these 3 will work. Now fine. Now the next element, like this element, it can be what? So it will actually depend on the previous element, that what was the previous element. Suppose the previous element I took as 3. So this element now can be 2 or 3 or 5. Suppose I took the previous element as 4. Now this element, next element can be 3 or 4 or 5. Fine. And if I took this element as 5, then this element, next element would be either 4 or 5 or 6. Now these 2 elements are filled. I want to fill this particular element now. So again, this will depend on what was the previous element. I hope you got what I was trying to convey. Whenever you are going to fill any unknown value, so it will always depend on what was the previous value. If you are going from left to right and filling the values, then it will always depend on what was the previous value. And obviously it will also depend on what is the current index or which index you are going to fill. So these two will form the states in your DP. So the states of the DP would be, one will be the index and one will be the previous value. So now we need to think of only a recursive relation. So now just pause the video and try to think of a solution. Now I'm going to tell you another hint. So let us say you have this test case where m is given as 3 and all the values are 0. This is the kind of corner case which you must think of. So what should be the answer in this case? So in this case you are free to fill this particular element with any value from 1 to 3. So you can also fill it with 1, you can also fill it with 2, you can also fill it with 3. So any will work. Let us say this m was 10. So you can even fill this value with 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Any value can be filled here. Similarly, once you have filled this one, now what you are going to fill at this place will depend on what you have filled on the previous place. And this thing will go on up to here. Now let's try to form a recursive solution out of this. So let us say we want to find dp of I comma, or let us say I, and another state is the previous value. So let us say priv, where this indicates the number of ways to fill the array starting from this ith position in the left to right manner, and where the previous value is priv. I hope you got it. Suppose that the previous value is 0, it means that the previous value itself is undefined, means you are at the first element. I am considering that the ith element is a known element, or you can say it is marked as 0. Otherwise we cannot fill this ith element, so we'll just move on with the next element in that case. So I am just considering the case here when this ith element of the array is unknown, so we want to fill up this ith element. So in this case, if we are having the I as 0, or let us say you don't have any previous element for this index, so in this case we can fill it from any element from 1 to m, and we can call solve for this particular value. Let us say a variable j goes from 1 to m, and for each j you will find out basically the summation of j equal to 1 to m, solve of I plus 1 comma j, because the previous element of the next element would be j. And if you have some previous element defined, then you can always go from previous minus 1 to previous plus 1, such that the difference between two consecutive elements does not exceed 1. So it will be again summation from j equal to priv minus 1 to priv plus 1. Again, you need to consider corner cases where priv minus 1 is 0, or let us say priv plus 1 is greater than m. So we will take care of these corner cases in our code itself. So this will be here, and this thing same will be here. Summation of this thing of solve of I plus 1 comma j, where j is the previous value for the next index. So we are missing only one thing here, that is the base condition of the recurrence relation. So I would say just pause the video and try to think what would be the base condition here. Okay, I think you might be having an answer with you. So let me tell you, the base condition would be when since we are going from left to right, so it will be something like it will call for 0, then it will go for I equal to 1, then I equal to 2, and so on until you reach I equal to n. Since we are having elements up to only n minus 1th index, which is the last element, if we reach at I equal to n, it means that we have reached the end of the array. So there is nothing to fill now. So that time, what you need to return? You don't need to return 0, because you are finding the number of ways. So for terminating condition, if it is successful, then we return always 1, because that is a successful count. That is a way to do the given task, or you can say that is a possible array you have got. So you always return 1 in that case. So whenever I is n, you will return 1. Now I would say pause the video and try to implement it on your own. You can try to write a recursive function, because that would be much easier. And if you are comfortable with iterative, you may try with that also. Okay, so now let us solve it together if you have any problem in the implementation part. So let me take two global variables. One is n and one is m as per the given question itself. And first we take the input of n and m, then we need to take the array as input. So let us define a global array itself at the beginning. So let us say I define an array here, let it be vec, and we take input of each element. Fine, then we will just okay, we need to resize this array because since it is not having any size, so let us say the size is n. So vec dot resize n, what it will do is it will just resize this array, or sorry, vector with size n. Let's define a DP array here since we have two states. One is for the current index and one is for the previous element of the array. Since the previous element cannot exceed 100, the second dimension would be, let us say 101. Let us give one extra. And for this, the index part, since the number of elements which can be present in the array is given as maximum 10 to the power 5. So let us declare a constant here, let us say max, which has a value 10 to the power 5, and this first dimension would be, let us say max plus 1. And now let us fill this array with -1 because you know that you need to memorize the array if you are writing a recursive code. So for int I equal to 0, I less than equal to the max, and I plus plus, and for int j equal to 0, j less than 101, j plus plus, dp of I j equal to -1, and we have initialized -1. Now let us write the solve function for this. So here you need two dimensions or two states of the DP. One is the index, let us say I, and one is the previous value, let us say priv. Now there are two cases mainly, that either this ith index or you can say vec of I is already filled. So in that case you cannot fill it again. If it is 0, it means that you need to fill it with any particular valid value. So if vec of I is not equal to 0, it means that we cannot fill it, but we need to validate whether it satisfies the given condition or not. So what will be the condition here? First you need to check if previous is 0, or previous is 0 means it is the first element of the array. So previous equal to 0 means that you need not check anything in the left of this element or in the previous part of this element. You just need to check for the right parts of this element, whatever is in the right of this element. So if this is not true, then it will come in the second part of the OR. So we will check now that if the difference between the previous element and this element, if this absolute difference is let us say not let us say it is greater than 1, then it will not satisfy. So it should be always less than equal to 1. If this is true, then what we need to do, we just simply add to the answer. Let us say we declare a variable answer which will store our final answer. So we will do just answer equals to answer plus solve I plus 1 because we are going to the next index, and for the next index the previous value will be this value current, which is the current value. So it should be vec of I, and here mod we can write, since the mod is given as 10 to the power 9 plus 7, let us declare a constant here. And if this is not true, so in that case our answer should be 0 because it is not satisfying the condition. So invalid will not be counted in the answer. So simply answer is 0 in that case, so it is already 0, so we do not need to do anything here. In the else part, there will be one case which I told, that when the element is unknown and you need to fill it. So in that case there will be again two cases, if the previous element is 0 or not. Previous element is 0 means simply it is the first element of the array. So we can fill this element with any value from 1 to m. So let us run a for loop for int j equal to 0, not 0, because 0 cannot be a possible value, it is given. So from 1 only we can fill to, let us say m, and for each will be summing the answers. So answer equals to answer plus solve of I plus 1, and for the next value the previous will be this j, because we are filling this unknown with j, let us say. So for that next element it will be the previous. So this should work. Just mod it with %mod. In the else part, if the previous is not 0, so we don't have any freedom, we can just fill it with previous -1 to previous plus 1, any number from previous minus 1 to previous plus 1. So again the same for loop, but the conditions will change. So it will be from previous minus 1 to previous plus 1. But I told you that we need to take care of the corner cases, like previous minus 1 is 0, or let us say previous plus 1 is greater than m. So we just need to take minimum of previous plus 1 and m so that it lies in the proper interval. And here we need to take maximum of 0, not 0, maximum of 1 and this particular thing. So now this will just give us the answer for this particular case. So at last we can just return our answer, return dp of I comma previous as answer, and just apply the memoization here. If dp of I comma previous is already saved, means it is not equal to minus 1, then just simply return it by dp of I previous. For the base case, you know that the base case is when we reach the end of the array, when I equal to n, that time simply return 1 because we have found a successful array. So we need to add 1 to our answer. Suppose if you return 0, then it will always give you 0 as the answer. Reaching the end, that just signifies that we have found a successful array. So just add it up to your answer. So add 1 here. Now we can simply call this function in the main. See out, simply we can do solve of 0 comma 0 because the previous value for first element is 0. So it passes the sample test case. Let me run it on the CSCS problem set. So I upload it, submit it. Yeah, it's accepted. Now let us solve the second problem. It is coin combinations part 1 on CSCS. So this question says that you have a money system which has n coins and each coin has a positive integer value. Your task is to calculate the total number of distinct ways you can produce a sum x using the available coins. Basically, you want to arrange those coins such that the sum of those coins is equal to x. So you need to find out the total number of possible ways. Let us take the example. The given sum is, let us say, 9, and these are the possible coins given to you. So now there are total 8 ways as given. 2 plus 2 plus 5. One you take a coin of 5 and 2 coins of 2. So you form the sum 9. And you can take in this order also, like first you took a coin of 2, then a coin of 5, then a coin of 2. So here order matters. So each ordering will be treated differently. So basically you need to find out all the permutations in this question, all the permutations such that the sum is as given x. And you can see sum of all the possible combinations given here is equal to 9 as given in the question. So you need to find out the total number of ways modulo 10 to the power 9 plus 7. You can also view the constraints given here, and I would say just pause the video and try to solve it by your own. And if you are stuck, I will give you a small hint and you can try again after that. Now I am going to give you a small hint. Consider this test case. We want to make a sum of 12 using these coins. So what are the possible ways you can find out here? Suppose I use a coin of 2 rupees or coin of value 2. So now I want to just make a sum of 10 because 10 is remaining. 2 is already I have used 2 and now 10 is remaining. Similarly, suppose I don't use 2 and I use this coin of value 3. So if I use this coin, then 12 minus 3 is 9. So I need to make now the sum of 9. Similarly, if I use this coin of value 5, then I need to just make a sum of value 7. Now with this you have an idea that now we are just reducing the problem into some smaller sub problems, or you can say that if I want to make a sum of 12, then it is equal to the number of ways to make a sum of 10 plus the number of ways to make a sum of 9 plus the number of ways to make a sum of 7. Or you can say that the sum which is required to be made, this sum is a DP state here. So using this state, you might be able to develop the recurrence relation and solve the problem. Now pause the video and now try to solve the problem by yourself. If you still cannot do it, I will tell you the whole solution approach now. So now I am going to tell you the whole solution approach. So here what we are doing is we are making a DP array where DP of, let us say, S shows that how many ways are there to make a sum equal to s. So you can say number of ways to make a sum of s, sum of value s. So number of ways to make sum equal to s. Now what will be the recurrence relation here? So here let us say you have a coins array. So let us say you have a coins array and you want to just iterate over the whole array and try out each coin. Each of the coin you can try it using once and see if it works. Like you can only use a coin when it is having a value less than the given sum or equal to the sum. I mean to say that suppose you want to make a sum of 10 rupees, but you have a coin of 50 rupees. So this is greater than 10, so you can't use it to make a sum of 10 rupees anyway. So we need to test this condition. So in summation we will run it from I equal to 0 to n minus 1, means the whole coins array. And also we will check that if the coins of I, the coin value of the coin should be less than or equal to the sum, which is s here. So I mean to say that if coin of I am writing in subscript here. So if coin of I is less than equal to s or the sum, then only we will include it in our answer. So if it is less than equal to s, so it means that we need to now sum up dp of s minus coins of I or coin of I, where coin of I is the value of the ith coin. And the base condition here would be when you reach a sum of 0, when you reach s equal to 0, what you need to return here? Here you can't return 0 again, because if the sum is 0, it means you have reached a possible way to make this sum. So you will return 1. This will be the base condition, return 1 in this case. So I hope you understood the solution. If you have any doubt, you can always ask in the live chat here if you are watching it live. And if you are still not clear with it and you want to ask it tomorrow's session, you can do it. But now try to write a code for it for the implementation of this part. Now I am going to write the solution for this. So we need two global variables. Let us say one is the number of coins, one is the sum required x, and we need a vector of coins. So let us say vector int coins, and we can take the input here, c in n and then x. Then we will take the input of the coins array, and we need to resize this array first because it should have a size of n and we are taking n as input. So we would do coins dot resize n. You might have understood why I'm using a global array here, because it will be easy for me to use it in the recursive function. I don't need to pass it again and again. Also, the maximum value of the, you can see the total possible sum which is given in the question is, it can be maximum up to 10 to the power 6. So I define a variable for that, a constant maybe. So we define a constant for the mod also, because we need to take the mod with 10 to the power 9 plus 7. And we now define a dp array. The size of the dp array can be at the, in the worst case it may be of size equal to max, or we can say max plus 1. So we define this array, and now you know that what dp of I means. Dp of I means the number of ways to make a sum equal to I. So this is the definition of our dp array, and we will just now you can say initialize each of the variable equal to -1, since we are writing a recursive code and it will use memoization. So dp of I equals to -1. Now let us write the recursive function. Let us say it's solve. It will take the sum as argument, which will be the sum which is required to be made. And you know the base condition is if simply sum is 0, you return 1, because you have found out a possible way. So you need to add it up to the answer. And we will look for memoization. If dp of sum is not equal to -1, we can directly return the answer from the dp array, because we already have pre-calculated it. This signifies that we have already calculated the answer. So we will just return it. And otherwise, what we can do is we will just iterate through the whole coins array, I equal to 0 to I less than n, because n is the number of coins, and just check if this coin has a value less than equal to the required sum. Only then we can use it, or you can say we can use it to make our sum And now in that case, the problem will reduce to the problem of making the sum equal to sum minus coin I, because you already have used this coin. So now the required sum is this much, and we need to just add it up to our answer. So let us define a variable answer, int answer equal to 0, and just we will add this to answer equals to answer plus this solve, whatever the recursive function will return, modulo mod, this mod I have defined here. And I think this would be sufficient. Just return and save it in the DP array, DP of sum equal to answer. Let us call it in the main function. So in the main, we will simply call, since we need to make a sum equal to x, so we will simply call solve of x, and just see out. Let us try to run it. So actually here I have misspelled it, or you can say I now correct the spelling. Let us run it again. And yeah, it is giving the correct on sample. Let me submit it once. The file is this one, and let me submit it. Yeah, it's accepted. Now let us move to the third problem, which is a second part of this coin combinations itself. So now this problem says that you need to find the distinct ways again to make a sum of x, but now the difference is that it is just asking you the number of distinct ordered ways. Means now the permutations of the same combination doesn't matter, or you can say that like you want to make a sum of 9, and it is a way to make it using 2 plus 2 plus 5. So now you can't do like you take a value of 2, then you take a value of 5, and you take a value of 2, then say it's different. Here ordering doesn't matter. So if you have taken this combination, so it's you can't repeat this combination again. You need to find out a different combination. I mean to say that the ordering doesn't matter. It signifies that it is like you need to find the number of combinations here. Earlier question we found the permutations. Here the ordering doesn't matter. Or you can say each ordering would be treated in the same manner. It will be counted as one only. The rest, it is the same question as the previous one. I would recommend you to try it by your own. Pause the video and try it by your own. If you are stuck, I will let you know a small hint. So now I am going to give you the hint for this problem. So basically here you need to treat all the combinations, or you can say all the permutations, in the same manner. So I would give you a hint. What you can do, just try to prevent all the permutations being created. Just take any permutation and like fix the order. Okay, this order will be there. You can't change the order in some other way. So what you can do is, like whatever the order of given coins is, you just take this order and just take coins in this order only. Okay, let's first understand what was happening in the previous problem. So what we did was we used a coin of value 2. So our problem reduced to make a sum of 10 now. If we used a coin of 3, our problem reduced to make a sum of 9. If we used a coin of value 5, our problem was just now to make a value of or sum of 7. Similarly, you keep on doing this. If you use a coin of 2 here, similarly, if you keep on doing this, you use a coin of value 2 here, and now your problem reduces to making a sum of 8. If you use a coin of 3, it reduces to making a coin of 7, and so on. And see, you can see the overlapping sub problems here. 7 is here also and here also. Many overlapping sub problems here. So let me complete this up to the second level. So I use a coin of 5. It will be here 5. So you can try to complete it by your own. I want to just show you one thing. Just see carefully. You can here what was happening is you are using a coin of value 2, then you are using a coin of value 3 to get the sum to get our question reduced to making the sum 7. Also you are doing like this, that you are using a coin of value 3 first, then you are using a coin of value 2, and again your problem reduces to finding the answer for sum 7. Now just see one thing here, you are treating each order separately, each order differently. Now you need to think of any way that these two are treated in the same manner. You don't, if you have used this particular path, if you have used 3 after 2, or you can say if you are using this particular ordering, then this ordering doesn't come in your tree. For doing this, a simple way is you can just fix the ordering as to be as given in the question. Like suppose all the coins are given in the sorted order, in increasing order, or if it is not given, you can easily sort the coins array. It's no big deal. And now just think that if you have used 2, then you can again use this coin 2, or you can move to the next coin. Or let us say I have moved to the coin 3. I am using now a coin of value 3. But once you have used this coin 3, you cannot come back and use this coin 2. You always need to move in the ascending order, or you can say increasing order, in the order of the sorting. Like it can be there, like you have used a coin 2, then again you want to use this coin, and again you want to use this coin. Numbers may be equal, but it cannot be there, like if you have used a coin 3 here, it cannot be that after 3 again you are using 2. If you ensure this particular type of ordering, you will see that this tree will reduce to another tree where you will find only unique orderings, where each combination will be there. No other permutations of all those combinations would be present. So for maintaining this ordering, you need to take another state here, which will be the index in the coins array. So this will be your another state. One state is as same as the previous, the required sum. That state is there, and one more is the current index in the coins array. So now you have a two-dimensional DP to solve this problem. Now I would say just pause this video and try to solve it by yourself. If you are stuck, I will tell you the whole solution approach. So now I am telling you the whole solution approach. So it works like this. First we define what our DP array indicates. So it is a two-dimensional DP where we have two things. One is, let us say, S, and one is I. I is the index in the coins array, and S is the required sum you need to pay. And it will give you the number of ways to make this sum S, and I is the index. Number of ways to make sum S, sum is S, and I is the index. If you are moving from left to right, then I is the current index which you can use, and you can also use any other coin which is to the right of that, but you cannot go in the reverse direction. I hope you understood my point, because if you are moving from left to right, suppose now you have reached this I point or the ith index, now you cannot use any element to the left of it. You can use this ith element, you can also use elements to the right of it, but you cannot use the previous one. So in this way you will be maintaining a particular order, and it will give you all the combinations in spite of the permutations. So the recursive relation for this DP would be, I told you, either you can use this ith coin, or you can use any coin to the right of it, or I mean to say you can move to the next coin. So basically there are only two ways. Either you use this coin or you move to the next coin. So these two ways will cover all the possibilities that are possible. If you are using this ith coin, then your answer will reduce to sum DP of sum minus coin I, because your sum will be now this one. And now since you have used this coin, the value of I will remain same, so you will just use this coin and remain at this position. And otherwise, if you have not used it, you will move to the next index, you can say. So DP of sum and I plus 1. So just think carefully. If you try to draw the recursion tree, then it will cover all the possibilities involved here. Since I am writing I plus 1 here, so these two cases basically would cover all the possibilities and will give you the total number of ways possible. Now if you have a question in mind why we are adding it, we are not multiplying it, I have told you in the beginning, whenever you are doing two jobs which are independent and which are like such that either of them you need to do, you cannot do both of them, then in that case here we can't do two things at the same time. Either you use the coin or you don't use it. So these two are separate things. These two are, you can say, we are doing only one thing at a time, not both of them. So that is why we are adding it here, to give the total number of ways to produce a sum S if we are at the ith index. So this is the recursive relation. Now I would say that you should write the code by yourself. At least try to implement it by yourself. You can pause the video for that. Now I will just modify the previous code so that we can solve this question easily, because there is only a change of one state here. We are just adding one state to the solution. So we need to now make a two-dimensional DP here, and the second state is for the index of the coin. So here it would be, since your n can be up to 100, so it would be 100 plus 1. And when we are initializing the DP array to -1, we just take an inner loop inside that and we do it till 100, and we will just do DP of ij equals to -1. DP of ij equals to -1 here, and This is fine, the input part is fine, and here we will call it solve x comma 0 because 0 is the index which we will start with, and here we pass the index in, let us say, int, and if sum is 0 we will return 1. But suppose when this sum is, let us say, not 0 and we have reached the end of the array, so int equals to n, in this case what would you return? Since you have reached the end of the array, means all the coins are finished, now you cannot use any coin, but still some sum is remaining, let us say sum is 2, 3, 4, any positive integer, so you have not found any correct way to create that sum given some x, so in this case you will return 0. So now we will also just change this memorization condition. It will be if dp of sum int not equal to -1, then return dp of sum int. And here this for loop is not required. What we will do, we will just check if coins of int is less than equal to the required sum, then only we can use it, obviously. And in that case we will just add the answer for if what will be the case when we use it. So answer plus solve of sum minus coins int, and your index would be the same, and modulo you must take. And also if we are not using it, so for not using it there is no need to check any condition, so that case will always be there. So answer equals to answer plus solve sum is same, but you are now moving to the next coin, and modulo, and we will change this thing to sum int also will be there. Now let us just run it and let's see what happens. So running it gives us yes, it passes the sample test case, so the file is the same, and let me submit it. As you can see, it is giving TLE for like about 6 cases, and observe one thing, that it is giving TLE for only those cases where both n and x have the highest value possible. So you can say that this question particularly has a very high constant factor, means our time complexity is big O of n into x, still it is giving TLE. And just what we can do is now try to write a iterative version of the code, and that should pass because iterative is much faster than recursive by you can say by a constant factor. So now let us write an iterative code for the same. For the iterative code we can just remove this part, and we can just take one dimension even to solve this using iteration. I will tell you how. So the input part remains the same, now we don't need memorization and such stuff. And now what we will do is, since we want that the order of the coins used should be the same, like in the, let us say, order of the coins only, like first if a coin number 2 is used, a coin before that coin now can not be used again. So it would be something like we make a outer loop for the coins. So it int I equals to 0, I less than n, I plus plus, so an outer loop for the coins. And for the sum we take an inner loop, int j equals to, let us say, we will start from the sum 1 and go to sum x j plus plus. And since we need a base condition, so here the base condition would be simply dp of 0 is 1, because you know that if you have a sum, given sum as 0, there is only one way to make that sum, use no coin. Without using any coin you will be able to make it. Or you can also think in that way that if you use dp of 0 equal to 0, and whatever you are going to add it up in your answer, you will always get an answer 0. So at least whenever you need to find the number of ways, at least one place should be there where you are returning 1 in the base condition. So here that is when we have the sum 0. Now just we need to write the recurrence relation here, which is we need to check whether this ith coin which we are going to use, is that coin having a value less than the required sum j. So we will just check coins of I is less than equal to j. If it is so, then we will just use it. I mean to say dp of j equals to dp of j minus coins I plus dp of j itself modulo mod. And now let us see if it is giving the correct answer. So first we will need to just print dp of x. Since now dp of I just shows me what are the number of ways to make a sum equal to I. So I'm running it on the sample case and it is passing the sample test case. So now let us save it and submit it. So now it is accepted. So now let us discuss the fourth problem, which is exponential subsets from HackerRank. So this problem says that you are given an array A of n integers and your task is to determine that for every element, if any of its powers can be expressed as sum of any subset of the given array, if it is possible or not. Just you need to tell this thing for every element. So basically in mathematical form you can see is that summation of all the elements in the subset means basically the sum of the subset is equal to ai to the power k for any power. So if it is true, then you need to print 1 for that element, otherwise you need to print 0 for that element. So we need to print n integers for every element, like we need to test for every element. Is there any power of this element which is equal to the sum of any subset of the array? Is it possible or not? If it is possible, print 1, otherwise 0. So I would recommend you to try it by your own first and pause the video and try it by your own. And if you are stuck, I will give you a small hint. So the hint is that if you solve the previous problem, you can find one similarity here that subsets, consider subsets of any set. So basically subset means that the ordering doesn't matter. Like you write a subset 1, 2, 3, you write a subset 3, 2, 1. It is the same because the order doesn't matter. We are not talking about the permutations here. We are just talking about the combination. So here also we need to keep track of only the combinations. For keeping track of that combination, we need one state, that is the index, the current index at which we are present. So one state will be the index, and another state for the dynamic programming would be obviously the sum that you want to make. You want to find whether this sum is possible or not. So we would generally find this thing for almost every possible sum, whether this sum is possible or not. And at last we will check for all the powers of each element, whether it is possible to make a sum equal to that or not. So let us say we have dp of sum ind. So here dp of sum ind gives you, is it possible to create or to make a subset of sum equals to this sum, which is the first index, and if the last element used was ind. Ind is basically the index. Last element used was ind, means the ind was the index of the last element used. So it would work in this way that suppose you have picked up any element, let us say 5. So now you can pick up any element to the right of it, but you cannot pick any element to the left of it. Similar to the previous one what we did. And if it is possible, this value will be 1. If it is not possible, this value will be 0. And you know that either an element will be present in the subset or it will not be. Only there are two cases here. So we can also write the recursive relation for the dynamic programming here. dp of sum ind equals to dp of, now if you have used this element, so now you want to make a sum of sum minus a of ind, and now you will have to move to the next element. Since you have used this element, you cannot use this 2 times. And if you have not used this, then in that case it would be dp of sum will remain the same, and you will move to the next index ind plus 1. So we need to sum up these to get the value of this particular, and obviously you need to check whether this thing is greater than equal to 0 or not. Otherwise it will give you segmentation fault also, and you need to check. Obviously this is necessary because if the element's value itself is not less than or equal to sum, let us say the element is 4 and you want to make a sum of 2, so you cannot make it. So that testing we will do in our code. So this was the hint. Now you should try it by your own. So this was the hint. Now you should pause the video and try it by your own. So now I am going to tell you the solution approach. So let us comment this. What is the input format? Let us see. So test cases, then n, then the array. So int d, then we can take n as global because we will be passing it again and again in our solve function otherwise. So also we need the array as global vector int vec, let us say, or let us make it a only. Now we need to take this array as input and as well as the number n. So c in n, and for every element for int I equal to 0 to n, let us take the input for every element, so it would be a of I. Now let us create a dp array int dp of, now you can see that the maximum possible sum here is 100 multiplied by 100. Suppose in the worst case every element is equal to 100, so your sum would be 10 to the power 4. So max sum here is, let us define a max here. So max sum possible here is 10 to the power 4. So I declare an array of size 10 to the power 4 plus 1, and the second dimension requires 100, so it would be 100 at the second dimension. Let us take it 101. Now let us initialize every element inside this by -1. For int I equal to 0, I less than n, I plus plus, and let us say I is less than equal to max, and we define j for the inner variable. For int j equal to 0, j less than n, j plus plus, and dp of I j equals to -1. Now let us define a function solve, and you can also return a boolean from here because that would be better. And we will just take two arguments. One is the sum, one is the index, as these are the states of our dynamic programming problem. And let us say we have, and let us say if we have sum equal to 0, then what should we return? We will return true or 1. So true we will return because you have an empty set which has sum 0, so we have one set, so it is possible, so we will return true. And suppose you have reached the end of the array but still your sum is something, it is something positive, so it is not equal to 0. So in that case, if you have reached the end of the array means you have reached n. So in that case, since n means that you have completed your traversal of the array and still you have not found a subset which has given sum, so we will return false here. Now as I told you, you have just two ways what we discussed earlier. Like we have only two ways, either we can use this element and this would be our next recursive call, otherwise we will not be using this element and we will just increment our index. Now we are not taking this as arithmetic addition, we will just basically do a logical OR of it, since we are returning a boolean here. If we needed to find the number of total ways or number of subsets which have a sum equal to that particular thing, then we could have done this arithmetic addition. So let us define a boolean answer equals to false, and now we have a case when, let us say, this element a of ind is less than equal to the sum. So in that case we can always use this particular element in our subset, we can always include this element in the subset. So we will do answer equals to answer or, and here we will call this function recursively for sum minus a of ind, and I am moving to the next index now. Similarly, if you are not using this element, then you would do answer equals to answer or solve, sum will be same but you will move to the next index. Now we will just return dp of sum ind equals to answer. Only one thing is missing here, I suppose, that we have not used memoization until now, so just put a if condition here. If dp of sum ind is not equal to -1, then simply return dp of sum and ind. You might have understood why I am using this OR here and why I have initialized this to false, because in the worst case it may not be possible, so I initialize it to false. And if I found a solution, OR of true with false will give always true. So if I have found a solution using this function, this recursive call, then the logical OR of these will return in true. So this will give me true for this particular dp value. Similarly, suppose that this particular recursive call gives me false but this one gives me true, then also our answer should be true, because as given in the question it is asking is there a possible way. So we just need to find if even there is only one possible way, there is a possible way, so we need to print one even if there is only one possible way. And if you know the truth table of logical OR, you might be knowing that even if there is one true and there are all the remaining variables are false, then also the resultant logical OR is true. Now let us call this function in main such that it gives the desired answer. So basically for each element we would be iterating from 0 to n, and we would be checking for every power of that element such that it is less than equal to max, and max I have defined at the top, and max basically means the sum of all elements, sum of the subset which contains all the elements. So we would be taking a variable num equals to a of I multiplied by a of I, and we would be going until this number is less than equal to max, and we will just check if it is, let us say we have a variable here boolean answer equals to false, and we would just do answer equals to answer logical OR. Then we will call the solve function with, we want a sum of this number, and we are starting always from the 0th index, so we will pass int as 0. And now if there is any possible answer, if for any power we have a subset which has sum equal to that power, then we need to return true, we need to print 1. So that is why I have used logical OR here. And if answer is true, what I will do, I will print simply 1 and a space. If you have a doubt why I have initialized num with ai square, so you can see in the question that it is given that ai to the power k, but k should be greater than or equal to 2, means the power should be either square or more than that. And if answer is false, we will simply see out 0 and a space. Let us run it. So it gives a segmentation fault here, probably because I have not resized the array. So let us check once. Here I should resize this array, a dot resize n. Now let us run it again. It gives TLE. Oh, probably because I have forgotten to put the condition in while loop here. So not condition, the iterative statement which will be repeating in the loop. So it should be every step the num is multiplied by ai, because we want to check it for every power. So if you are at a square, then you want to move to a cube, then to a to the power 4. So every step you are multiplying by a. Also, I have not taken the input of the test cases, and the t is the test cases here, and I need to create a for loop for the test cases itself. So now this should work fine. Also, we can break here when we have found an answer. So if answer is true, we'll just break out of the loop. So it will save many of the iterations here. Now let us run it. It passes the sample cases. Now submit it. So yeah, the solution is accepted. Now I would give you a similar problem as homework, and let me explain you the problem. So the problem says that here you need to find out the number of ways a set which is from the numbers 1 to n can be divided into two sets of equal sum. So basically you need to divide the numbers from 1 to n into two sets which have equal sum. So, and you need to find out how many ways are there to do so. So you can see the example. If n is 7, then these are the possible distributions, like this set and this set. If you sum up these sets, then you will get equal sum. And similarly, this is also a way, and these total 4 possible ways are there. So you need to output the total number of ways modulo 10 to the power 9 plus 7, and n is less than equal to 500. Now just pause the video and try to think of a solution, and if you are stuck, I am here with a hint. So here is your hint. Since we need to partition the given set into two sets, it means that one element should be in at least, or you can say exactly one set. So it is not possible that you are not giving any set to any element. So every element should be in exactly one set, and you need to partition them such that the final two sets, both of the two sets have equal sum. So you can think in this way, that let us say one set has sum s, the second set also has a sum s. Now since each element can be in either of them and should be in either of them, you can say, so you can say that the sum of all these elements, let us say it is 2s, is equal to sum of the given elements. So here you can see that sum of these elements is coming out to be 28. So it means that the equal sum which you want is equal to, if you solve this equation, 2s equal to 28, you will get s equal to 14. So basically it means that you need to find a set, only one set, that has sum of element equal to 14. So automatically the remaining elements would definitely have sum equal to 14. I hope you got my point, that you need to find only one set which has a sum equal to 14. In this case 14. In general case you can say that if now I am just writing a general case. Suppose that given number is n. So suppose that given number is 1 to n, means the set is 1 to n. So you need to find the number of possible ways to divide this set into two sets of equal sum. So for this, basically you can convert it to this problem, that you need to find number of ways to find one set, only one set, such that sum of element to find one set with sum equal to s by 2, where s is the sum of all elements with sum equal to s by 2. Sum equals to s by 2. This is the hint, and now you should try it by yourself. And if you have any doubt, we would discuss in the tomorrow's session, which will be on Google Meet, and I have kept the link in the video description below, so you can check it, and please try to come in tomorrow's meet. And that would be the last meet of this particular academic session, so try to attend that. I hope you found this session useful. If you have not subscribed the channel yet, do subscribe it. Thank you.